Good morning. Okay, make me feel good this morning. What are some of the things from the first couple of lessons that you remember have jumped out at you? Things that you find significant? Not necessarily things that you've learned new, but things from our first couple of, the first 3 chapters in Revelation we talked about that bear repeating. What are some things you remember? Overcome. Overcoming is going to continue to be an important theme that runs throughout Revelation. In fact, we'll see it today as well.
It's a good thing.
It's what?
It's a good thing. It's not all bad news. This is a good thing if you're a believer.
Revelation is a good book to read. It's a good thing if you're a believer. Yeah, there's hope.
Praise of all the angels.
Praise of all the angels. Yeah. And again, we'll see that today very prominently. What else you noticed or remember?
Everybody has ears and eyes, let the Spirit guide you. He said on every one of those.
Say that again.
And he say, if you can hear and have eyes, let the Spirit guide you.
Hey, if you got ears to hear, let the Spirit guide you. Listen to Him.
And he pretty much says that on every one of them at the end of it.
Every one of those letters to the churches. So it's something that He wants you to listen to. And He says it 7 times, and with 7 times, that is that complete number. It needs to be a whole, perfect attitude that you have in your life. What else?
Blessing or reading this book.
Revelation is to be a book of blessing. It's not to be something that scares us. It's not something to be that frightens us. It's not something to cause fear in us. It is something to cause blessing and to bring joy to us. And we can if we are among those who are overcoming. Well, as we get into chapter 4, hopefully you've read ahead and you know where we're going in our study. But I wanted to let you know about this particular. Get past that. There we go. Okay, so the Lenape peoples, the Lenape tribe. It was a tribe of early Americans that lived kind of in the Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York area. That was the area that they lived in. Yes, ma'am?
That is my heritage.
You're from the Lenape?
Yes, my grandparents were both Delaware Indians.
Wow. How about that, Irma? Well, then if this story isn't true, don't tell everybody. I had the guy I worked with in Tyler, he said whenever his children were like 4 and 5 years old, they were on their way home from church one Sunday morning, and his daughter said, "Daddy, that was a really good story that you told today in your sermon. I love that story." She said, "But I got a question. Was it true or were you just preaching?" I have been told this is true, but I could just be preaching. So one day, some of the Lenape, they came and reported to the rest of the tribe that they saw, and this is what they said, tall floating cloud houses carrying hairy, pallid, ghost-like men. Let me try that again. They reported that they saw tall, floating cloud houses carrying hairy, pallid, ghost-like men.
British ships.
Well, I asked AI what that was. And this is what AI came up with. Not bad. Not good. Yeah, but you're right. What they had seen were these British ships coming in with some of the first settlers that were coming over to North America. Yeah. How do you describe something that you've never seen before? And so they used words, they used concepts, images that they were familiar with in order to try to describe what it was they saw coming in on the water. In some ways, that's what we've got in the book of Revelation, don't we? John is trying to describe what he saw. Remember, we've seen over and over again, this is a picture book. And what he was told was to write down what he saw. Now he'll write down what he hears and some of the teaching, but mainly he writes down what he saw. And so as he's seeing these heavenly images, now the comparison between the two is not completely, I mean, you can take it to an extreme, but what he sees, he tries to describe in terms that is going to be familiar to the folks he's writing to. And so we're at a little bit of a disadvantage from the standpoint of we didn't see what he saw. We are dependent on the images that he used to relate it to us. And of course, we're dependent on the images that, as he's guided by the Spirit, to relate to us, so that we can get an idea of what he's talking about. Now, another little kind of approach to Revelation I want to talk about. As we go into Revelation, we've noticed some things about how it's written and how you approach it. And the way that I have approached it, that I think captures what Revelation is doing, is to look at it kind of in a layered approach. It describes the Christian age as a whole. And it will describe it over and over and over again. And the things that he describes, the experiences, the happenings, that kind of thing, what you find, it happens over and over again with Christians of every age. Now, he's got a specific time period that he's dealing with, and like I said earlier in chapter 17, we'll notice some of the time period that he's got in mind. It had to be a blessing to these folks. And so the things that they're listening to, the images that they're reading, the lessons that they're learning, have to apply to what's happening in their lives at this point in time. In other words, I saw this video this last week of this guy saying, "You don't think the United States of America is in the Bible? Well, let me show you." And so he pulled over to Revelation. And he said, "See where it's here, and it's here, and it's here." And I had a professor in college that I thought said aptly, he said, "You know, I'm not so sure the United States of America is important enough to show up in God's book." But we'll see similarities. But what did the United States of America have to do with these folks? That is not what they needed to hear. They needed to hear what's going to happen to us. What is going to happen in our time? And we've already seen where John is told, here are the things that will soon take place. So it's going to be something within a chronology of time that's going to be significant to them. But when you read Revelation, the other thing that we oftentimes do is we will read it as if it is a chronological account of what's happening. This, and then this, and then this, and then this, because that's how we think. That's how we process information. We tend to tell stories. Well, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. But I'm not sure Revelation does that. It isn't a story where in images that are chronological in sequence. Instead, it's kind of like looking at a panorama of something, and you're looking at the whole story all at once. And what it looks like to me and others that have studied Revelation is that what the Revelation does is it looks at this panorama and it retells it 7 times. The first time that it tells the story that we just read about, chapters 1 through 3, the Christ indwelt church in the world. Christ is among the churches. And so we see a picture from the vantage point of the 7 churches, and Jesus talks to those 7 churches. But each time he tells the story again, he backs up a little bit, and he goes behind the veil of heaven, and he tells it from God's point of view. And so as we get into chapter 4, and we'll go through around chapter 7, he's going to talk about the church and its suffering, their trials and persecutions, and what it looks like from God's standpoint. Then he'll come back again, and he'll tell the story from another vantage point, going back a little bit further, going deeper into spiritual things, and then he'll do it again and again and again. And so what we see is this story unfolding and being described for us in more detail from God's point of view, so that it can be a blessing for believers to understand what God is doing. That makes sense? If not, maybe it will as we move along.
7
Sounds good? I'm glad it sounds good. I don't know if it is good, but at least it sounds good. All right, chapter 4. Let's get into chapter 4, because the first image that we're going to see as he tells the story is this magnificent throne scene. After this, after he receives these 7 letters, I looked, and there before me was a door standing open in heaven. And the voice I had first heard speaking to me like a trumpet. Okay, who was the voice? Where was the voice coming from earlier? You remember? Chapter 1 says he heard a voice that sounded like a trumpet, and he turned to find who was speaking to him. And it was Jesus. It was Christ. So he said, the voice I first heard speaking to me like a trumpet said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this." At once I was in the Spirit, and there before me was a throne in heaven with someone sitting on it. And the one who sat there had the appearance of jasper and ruby. A rainbow that shone like an emerald encircled the throne. Surrounding the throne were 24 other thrones, and seated on them were 24 elders. They were dressed in white and had crowns of gold on their heads. From the throne came flashes of lightning, rumblings, and peals of thunder. In front of the throne, 7 lamps were blazing. These are the 7 spirits of God. Also, in front of the throne, there was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. In the center of the throne were 4 living creatures, and they were covered with eyes in front and in back. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. Each of the 4 living creatures had 6 wings and was covered with eyes all around, even under its wings. What an incredible sight. Now, what do we do with that? What's he talking about? Well, let's start at the beginning and kind of work our way through it. First, he talks about this one who's on the throne. Do we know who it is yet?
God.
How do we know?
We believe it's God.
Okay, we haven't been told yet, though, have we?
That's right.
I know, just keep up reading ahead. We ask questions in here. It's an open book test. I understand that, yes. But at this point, we don't know. He is opening up this scene, and he says, one sitting on a throne. We can assume who it is, but he doesn't say just yet. In fact, we're going to let the heavenly host tell us. But we see this one on a throne, and around him, he says, there's this jasper and there's ruby. Some translations, what do the other translations say? I know for ruby, there's carnelian.
Yeah.
What's the other? Is it jasper in everyone's translations there? Yeah.
See, there I am again.
There, jasper?
Yes.
Straight out of heaven. That's right.
Good one, Irma.
Irma's paying attention today. And then it says there's this rainbow that looks like emerald. And later on it says there's this lightning and rumbles and peals of thunder all around the throne. What's he trying to get across with this throne, do you think? There's magnificence involved here. This is a sight that will take your breath away. It is, and notice that as he describes it, he will keep saying things like, it was like jasper, it was like ruby, it was like emerald. It had the appearance of. He's not saying these things were literally these things. This is kind of what it looked like for you to get an idea of what this. And so it was precious, it was valuable, it was incredible. What else you notice about these? What are the images you think trying to get across?
Authority.
Authority. Yeah. Someone in this magnificent, sitting on a throne. There's authority here. Yeah.
As I was reading this morning, I thought, I'm going to read this without trying to figure out what it all means.
Huh?
And it's just so beautiful. One thing, just like maybe we can sit down and read the tales of Narnia. We're not trying. We just want to know the story. And if we take that away without trying to dissect every single little thing, like an allegory out of it, just the beauty of it comes through. The description of God's royalty.
Yeah, what Jess is saying is that, what we've said before, don't miss the forest because you're trying to pick out every tree.
And that's probably what the early Christians would have done, is just, oh, this is the story here. This is,
Yeah, and just get the overall feel and flow of this story. It's significant, I would think, that the emerald looks like a rainbow. Where have we seen a rainbow before? It's a rainbow, and Noah was given a rainbow. It's a rainbow of promise, a rainbow of covenant. And so you see this throne. There's another image, and one of the things that I mentioned to you in the first lesson is when you look at an image, what is the image trying to get across? But one of the things, because it is so rooted in Old Testament language, where have we seen this image before? And so it talks about how the throne came flashes of lightning, rumblings, and peals of thunder. Where have we seen that before? Mount Sinai. God in all of his majesty, in all of his power and authority. And it's one that the people were afraid to approach. Now John in the Spirit approaches the throne room, is brought into that presence. So we see this throne with this around him. Then there's these 24 elders on the throne. 24 elders. I don't think they're talking about, where's Gary? I saw Gary come in, yeah. Maybe they are, I don't know. But 24 elders, numbers mean something in Scripture. The number 12 is a number that refers to religious wholeness, theology wholeness. We got 12 tribes of Israel. You have 12 apostles. We oftentimes see 12s, and so when you start putting those together, then you start seeing it multiplied from there. And so some have suggested that what we see are, we've got the 12 tribes of Israel, we got the 12 apostles. It's bringing the two covenants together. So what he's describing here is he has the whole covenant of God that is surrounding him in his throne room. And we'll see more of what these guys do later on. It says they were dressed in white, had crowns of gold on their heads. They're sitting there in purity, in wholeness, in being honored. They've got crowns on their heads. God is holding his covenant as something that is valuable and something that he holds close to him. This time there are 7 lamps, but what are these 7 lamps? Spirit. Now it says in the New International Version, the 7 spirits of God, but we notice some translations will say the 7-fold Spirit of God. It's that reminder from Isaiah where it says the 7-fold Spirit. It was a concept of the fullness of the Spirit. And so notice, in the throne room, we've already got, because we're going to hear about it later, we've got God sitting on his throne. We've got the Spirit surrounding the throne in this throne room. And it says these 7 spirits of God. And then it says that in front of this throne, a sea of glass. When you think of the sea of glass, what image does that conjure up in your mind? What does it look like to you? Reflection? If you were to paint that picture, draw that picture, where would you put it? What would it look like?
maybe a river.
Something like a river, a body of water. This is one of these where we're not sure exactly what he's referring to. You remember your Old Testament stories when you go back and you read about the tabernacle? What was sitting out in front of the holy place before a priest could go into that tabernacle? It was sitting out there?
The laver.
The laver. Also, in the old King James, what was it called? The sea. The word that's used for sea here is a word that could also refer to a basin. And so it's a basin of glass, or a sea of glass. It could refer to a body of water that surrounds the throne, and it looks like glass. It is just as smooth and just as pure, and it could look like glass. Or he could be referring to a laver, a bowl of some kind, a basin that has water in it that is made of crystal. It's pure. It's clean. Either way, what it describes is, as you approach the throne of God, there is opportunity for cleansing, so that a person has that opportunity to approach God. What he's picturing here is, it's kind of this Old Testament image, kind of a tabernacle image of the presence of God in people's lives. And he's showing what's going on here. And then he describes these 4 living creatures. Now, we know them as cherubim. Where have we seen these 4 living creatures before? That would be a little bit more difficult. If you go over to Ezekiel chapter 1, and then I think it's Ezekiel chapter 7, I believe it is. Ezekiel describes the presence of God at the temple. And he describes being surrounded by these 4 cherubim. And they're described in the same way that it's described here. And notice the way he describes them, again, like we said before, verse 7, the first living creature was like a lion. The second one was like an ox. They're not a lion and an ox and a man, and they're like that. That's what they kind of look like. And so they added the attributes that are ascribed to these creatures become symbolic around God. One who is like a lion, that authority, that power. The roar of a lion. The one who is like an ox, service, working in this world. One like a man, the image of intellect and reason. One like an eagle, a flying eagle. One who is swift, who covers this world in its travels. And so you got these cherubim who are there, who are serving God, and they've got eyes all around them. They see everything. They know everything. They see everything that's happening in this world. It's not that God is sitting on his throne and he's aloof from everything. He's got his cherubim who see everything that's going on and report back to him. And it says, day and night they never stop saying, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who sits on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever. They lay their crowns before the throne and say, you are worthy, O Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power. For you created all things, and by your will they were created and have their being. What an incredible picture. Now, I've got a question for you. For believers who are going through difficult times, believers who are facing persecution, who are facing the confiscation of all property, believers who are facing the possibility of death, believers who have lost loved ones because they have faced martyrdom, they have been put to death, believers who are constantly in fear of what others are going to do to them, how does this image help and bless someone in that situation? Why start here?
Shows you how mighty our God is, how awesome.
So there's that awesome might of our God that he's trying to get across. How else might this help early believers?
Is it like an example for us now that always holy, holy to the Lord?
Well, it's like somebody who's there for you all the time, who's looking out for you, who knows what's going on in your life. You can see and is in control of everything. Don't worry, I got you. That's what the image is provoked.
Yeah, notice all these things, how they fit together. They're living in a culture that is under the control of Caesar, who is waging this war against Christianity, against the people of Christ. But is Caesar really in control? No, ultimately, God's in control. In the midst of the storm, in the midst of the flashes of thunder and lightning, in the midst of everything going on, God is on his throne, and he is unaffected by that in his authority and in his power. He knows what his people are going through. He has knowledge, and as we've seen earlier in the book of Revelation, he's present among his churches. But where is the place to start for those who are being persecuted for Christ? It's in worship. When all else fails, when fear tries to creep in your life, when you look at how our world is spinning out of control, and as it spins out of control, I have fear for what does that mean for me? What is my future going to look like? What is going to happen to me and my family? What's going to happen to my grandkids? What's going to happen to this country? What's going to happen? Whenever those kinds of things start closing in on me, the place to start, the way to approach that is you fall down in worship. Do we understand that? Or is worship just something that we come and spend an hour or an hour and 15 minutes on Sunday morning, and that's what we do, and then we go home, and then we face the world in a different way? The image is to remind us that if you want to face this world with courage, if you want to be an overcomer, the place that you start is in worship. Now, how does this image of worship, how should it train us in our worship? What is it about this image of worship that will help us in our worship?
To me, everything's in subjection.
Everything.
As I look at it, it's all in subjection.
Everything in worship is in subjection to and in focus of God. I know in the New Testament we read that we are to sing hymns, psalms, and spiritual songs to one another. And a lot of those are those teaching songs that we sing to one another. You know, love one another, thus saith the Savior, or angry words, that's the same one, isn't it? We sing those songs to one another to help encourage one another and spur one another on and admonish one another. But the real center of worship is to focus on God, not us. When we start focusing on us, we lose the center of worship. We let our worship of God then teach and train us in living life. So, one of the encouragements is consider your worship. Is it one that's focused on God?
And we can do this individually. John was there all by himself.
Yes.
And if we are all by ourselves on an island, we can still worship God.
Worship isn't just something that takes place on a Sunday morning. Worship is life. In fact, that's the image that you get here. Now, we know that John is having this vision, this revelation on the Lord's Day. But you're right. He is in the Spirit. He is by himself. And it is something that we can do on our own. Focus on God. In fact, that's what our lives are to be. Well, after we see a throne, we see a lamb. Chapter 5, I saw on the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, "Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll?" But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside it. I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. What is going on with the scroll? This is a scroll that it's rolled up, parchment. And it says it's got writing on the inside, it's got writing on the outside, and it's been sealed up. It's got 7 seals on it. And if you'll remember, seals in that day meant only the authorized person, only the one who was meant for, could open up the seal. That was the one for whom the seal was intended. Otherwise, it was to be kept closed. And yes,
My Bible says that
a book.
rather than scroll.
Yeah, some translations will say a book. It's a collection of writing that's going on here. So you're right. It's in that day and time, possibly a scroll. Perhaps it's a collection of pages that have been put together. We don't know for sure. It's been sealed up. And the cry goes out, who is worthy to open this? And nobody is found who is worthy to do this. What does it mean for someone to be worthy to open something?
Sinless.
What's that?
Sinless.
Sinless? So that would make someone worthy. What does it mean to be worthy? What's that? Authority to do so? High position. The word itself really does refer to someone who is morally fit to do something. So sinless would fit into that pretty well. Someone who is able to because of their character. It says they looked all around. They could not find anyone. It says no one in heaven, no one on earth, no one under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside of it. And so what was John's reaction? He wept. Why would you weep at that? You ever weep at Christmas whenever you want to look inside that present, but you just can't see what's inside of it yet? It's not quite that important, is it? But this one is, isn't it? What makes this one important?
Because it's from God.
This one is from the hand of God. It's in His right hand. It's that authority. It is that being dictating what is going on. What God has in His hand is His plan for mankind. And right now it is sealed up. Dale's been talking about in the study of Ephesians. He's been talking about this mystery that beforehand was not known. It had been hidden, but now has been made known to us. And now this image comes up again where God has this plan for mankind. He's got His determination of how things are going to go. And John wants to know what is God's message? What is God's plan? And no one can open it. If you wanted to know God that well and you couldn't, wouldn't that cause you to weep? It says no one was there to look and to open it up.
And John wasn't worthy either.
What's that?
John was not worthy.
John was not worthy to open it. The angels were not worthy. The cherubim weren't worthy. Yes.
Thinking back in his mind, he thought Christ was worthy, but everybody said nobody was worthy, and it made him think about that and start crying.
Did his mind go back to Christ? He knew.
I mean, don't you think that he would have thought, well, Christ could open it?
John.
In the back of his mind.
He was the one that the disciple who Jesus loved. You know that John's mind always dwelt on Christ.
So if they said he couldn't open it, that
nobody could open it.
that'd make you fall apart.
He says, I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. Then one of the elders said to me, and I stopped right there. One of the elders said to me, that one kind of struck me a little odd. Because through the book of Revelation, oftentimes what you read is Jesus spoke, an angel spoke. Here, one of the 24 elders spoke. And I thought, why would an elder speak this instead of one of the angels or God or the Spirit or somebody? Why an elder? And one of the things that I've seen that has gone through chapter 4, now chapter 5, is the emphasis on the covenant relationship that we have with God. And it is this image of covenant that speaks to John now and says, well, let's look at what he says. He says, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. And so the one who finished covenant with God's people is now worthy to open up that scroll. It is the completion of the covenant with God. And he's described as a lion, the Lion of Judah, that authority to open the scroll, that worthiness to open the scroll, of the right lineage to open the scroll. He is in the right place of covenant to open the scroll. He is the tribe of Judah, the Root of David. He's triumphed. He's able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. And then he turns around and what does he see? He's expecting a lion. I saw a lamb, looking as if it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. The lamb had 7 horns and 7 eyes. It's a strange looking lamb, isn't it? Had 7 horns, 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. That 7-fold spirit is with Christ as well. He went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's people. We've had this heavenly throne room with the cherubim with eyes all about. We have the Lamb now who has 7 horns, perfect authority, 7 eyes, which are the 7-fold spirit that go throughout the earth. And these 24 elders are falling down before the Lamb, and they have included the prayers of God's people. They pulled them all together. And they sang a new song, saying, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals because you were slain. And with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to serve our God, and they will reign on the earth. And then I looked and heard the voice of many angels, numbering 1,000 upon thousands and 10,000 times 10,000s. They encircled the throne and living creatures and the elders. In a loud voice they were saying, worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and praise. And about that time they got to take a deep breath because they just can't, they don't want to stop. But they run out of words to be able to describe this Lamb. Then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and on the sea and all that is in them saying, to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be praise and honor and glory and power forever and ever. And the 4 living creatures said, Amen, and the elders fell down and worshipped. This Lamb who has been slain but is alive. He is full of deity. He's been filled with the Holy Spirit. He is worthy and he is worshipped.
He lives forever.
He lives forever. He has overcome. And because he has overcome, now he offers the opportunity for these who are suffering in this world in persecution to overcome. And he's got now in his hand the scroll with the 7 seals to explain how that can happen. Like Jess said, get an overall picture of what's going on here, because as God is going to deliver these words of comfort and victory to his people on earth, the place where it starts is the throne room of God and his majesty.
Where that progression goes from the creatures, the 24 elders, to the angels and thousands, to all creation.
Jess, and it's really interesting that you bring it. It's a good segue. We read at the beginning of chapter 4 that John is brought into the throne room in heaven. And so much of what happens in Revelation we ascribe to a place heaven. But what Jess just pointed out may expand us beyond just a view of heaven here. This particular commentator was looking at the different things as it expands from the throne. And he notices 7 different layers that expand from the throne. It begins with the throne where Father God is sitting, and around the throne are 3 rings which are represented by that the ruby and the jasper and the jasper and the ruby, and then the emerald rainbow that's around him. And then around him you have the 4 cherubim that encircle the throne. And of course, in front of that, we've got the lampstands, we've got the sea, the crystal sea that we've just seen. But then you go beyond that, and you see this circle of 24 thrones with the elders sitting on it. And then as the praise begins and expands, then you hear the chorus of angels that provide another layer around the throne. And then who joins them? Every creature on earth is that outer layer. What we may have this image is not so much a view of heaven itself, but a view of the universe that God created, with God who is sovereign over it all.
Putting that last circle on, it just hit me. That circle doesn't belong there, because it expands beyond any circle that can be given.
That last circle of every creature on earth, it's not a finite circle there. It expands immensely and infinitely. There's no limit to it. That's right. We're going to read some numbers that be in Revelation that have tried to put limits on it. But the message is not, it's a limited number. The message is, it just keeps going and going. God's authority, God's power, God's presence in this world encompasses it all. You see, if I'm an early believer, if I'm one who is struggling under doubt and fear and I want to overcome, this is the place to start. God is at the center of it all. God is in control of it all. God has the plan in His hand. It is sealed. It is final. It is done. And now we have the Lamb who has been slain but now lives forever, who is worthy to open those seals and see His plan, God's plan, accomplished. Now I have nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to fear. The evil one may want me to fear. He's the one that's the author of fear. But if I understand God and I understand the Lamb and I worship God and I worship the Lamb and I understand that the Spirit is at work in this world and His angels are there and His covenant has been completed, then I understand that God is the one that's truly at work. God is the one who has always had His plan at work, so I can rely on God for everything. What do I have to be afraid of? So, is it a blessing? Sure. Because here's the lessons that he wants to get across. God rules. There is no ruler greater than God. There may be earthly rulers that are powerful. Rome in that day was the superpower of the world. Caesar was on his throne. What he said went. But God rules. We have Christ who is worthy. His plan didn't fail. When he was put to death, it wasn't as if the enemy won. No, he has been slain, but he lives. And he lives forever. Christ is worthy. The Spirit is present. The Spirit is at work, empowering God's plan. Worship is central. Worship is at the heart of our life with God. And victory is certain. There's no question about it. Never let anybody tell you otherwise. And that is where we go with the rest of the book of Revelation. This is the message. This is the foundation. Now, the rest of the book of Revelation, the rest of what John sees, is going to describe how this works out in our lives. So, next week, we're going to go into chapter 6 and chapter 7. So read ahead, get the picture in your mind, and we'll come back together. Yes, sir?
And it says blood was shed for the ransom of the people, so his blood was shed so that we could be saved.
The blood was shed to bring us to God. That's right, to purify us.
That's one of the important parts.
It's extremely important, isn't it? All right, thank you very much. Have a blessed week.
Yes.